Princess Lirana of the Asterix Empire was known across many star systems, but not for the reasons people expected from a royal. She did not sit quietly on a throne or follow the rules written by her ancestors. Instead, she lived like a storm that moved wherever it wished. Advisors feared her strong will, guards dreaded her quick decisions, and even high-ranking commanders struggled to keep up with her unpredictable choices. She was brave, curious, and often reckless, and she never accepted limits, even when the limits were created for her own safety. Lirana never understood why people spoke to her with nervous eyes. She believed she was just living her life the way she wanted. If a law felt old, she broke it. If a rule felt unfair, she ignored it. And if anyone tried to stop her, she simply smiled and walked past them. The entire empire knew she could not be controlled. And secretly, many envied her bold freedom, but others feared she would one day place herself in danger so great that even her royal status could not protect her. The council had warned her again and again about traveling to the frontier moon called Varos 4. It was considered unstable, unpredictable, and far too dangerous for royalty. But the more they told her not to go, the more she wanted to. She had heard stories about its rough landscapes, its unpredictable ground tremors, and the humans who worked on the mining colonies there. She wanted to see it all with her own eyes. So when the council begged her to stay within safe royal boundaries, she boarded a shuttle without hesitation, wearing a confident smile that made everyone groan in worry. When her royal craft landed on Varos 4, she stepped out expecting weak security, soft workers, and a peaceful colony she could walk through freely. But instead, she stepped into a place full of tension. Loud alarms echoed through the metal corridors of the landing bay. People were running, lights were flashing red, and security drones flew overhead scanning for potential danger. For a moment, even Lirana paused at the chaos. It was not what she had imagined. Before she could take a step, a voice called out behind her, firm and calm. A human man, tall and dressed in a utility suit marked with engineering symbols, walked straight toward her. He was not impressed by her royal armor, nor intimidated by the glowing crest on her shoulder. He did not even bow. He simply tapped a device in his hand and said, "You can't stand there. Move back behind the safety line." Lirana blinked, surprised. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes," the man said, still calm. "Princess Lirana. And you're standing in a danger zone. Move." No one in her entire life had spoken to her like that, straightforward, steady, and without fear. She felt a strange jolt, not of anger, but of curiosity. For once, someone was not bending before her title. She stepped forward instead of back, testing him. "I go wherever I wish." The man sighed, as if he had dealt with dozens of stubborn people like her before. "And I'm trying to keep you alive. So, unless you want a generator coil to fall on your head, step behind me." She opened her mouth to argue. But in that moment, a loud cracking sound echoed across the bay, followed by a burst of sparks from an overhead line. A heavy metal bar hanging from the ceiling snapped and crashed onto the floor exactly where she had been standing. If she had not moved, it would have hit her. She stared at the broken metal piece, then at the human. He didn't smirk. He didn't point out that he had warned her. He simply turned on a small scanning device and continued checking the area. "There. Now will you stay behind the line?" For the first time in her life, Princess Lirana listened to someone's instruction without arguing. She moved behind him silently. The human man, whose name tag read Jace Rowan, finished searching the area. His movements were quick but calm, like someone used to working under pressure. He spoke to a group of humans nearby, giving them clear directions. Lirana noticed that everyone listened to him easily, even though he was not a commander or officer. His confidence came not from authority but from skill. She followed him with her eyes as he walked. Something about him felt different from the others she had met. She had crossed paths with hundreds of alien leaders, military captains, and royal advisors. but none had ever made her feel so challenged. When the alarm stopped, Jace finally turned to her. Lirana lifted her chin. "I do not follow rules. I do not agree with." "I figured," Jace said. "But rules exist for a reason here. Veros 4 is unstable. If you want to explore, at least let someone guide you." "You?" Lirana asked, her voice carrying both amusement and interest. "If it keeps you alive, sure," he replied. She stared at him for a few seconds, trying to read him. Jace didn't flinch. His eyes were steady, not challenging her, but not being controlled by her presence either. It was strangely refreshing. Before she could answer, a loud explosion echoed across the colony. The floor shook violently, and the lights flickered. Several workers stumbled as a shockwave rolled through the structures. A plume of smoke rose from the far edge of the colony, near the generator towers. Jace reacted immediately. The generator grid is failing. If it collapses, half the colony loses oxygen supply. He grabbed an equipment pack from a nearby locker and handed her a compact stabilizer device. "If you're coming with me, wear this." Lirana stared at the device. No one had ever handed her something in such a direct, practical way. People usually rushed to give her special royal equipment or tried to impress her with fancy tools. But this was simple, functional, and necessary. Without saying a word, she took it and attached it to her suit. Jace nodded. "Good. Now stay close." They ran together across the colony grounds. Smoke clouds rose from the damaged structures, and emergency workers rushed toward the scene. The ground trembled as smaller explosions echoed from beneath the metal floor. Lirana felt excitement rush through her veins. This was the adventure she had wanted, but she soon realized she needed to rely on Jace. The pathways were confusing, filled with blocked passages, falling debris, and sudden bursts of pressure from broken valves. Every few steps, Jace warned her about unstable ground, sharp wiring, or hidden hazards. She listened carefully, trusting his experience. At one point, she tried to help by reaching for a control panel, but Jace immediately caught her wrist, not roughly, but firmly enough to stop her. "Don't touch that. One wrong move can trigger a meltdown." Lirana froze. In the palace, she had been celebrated for her fast thinking. Here, her usual impulsiveness could cause disaster. She stepped back and let him handle the panel. Jace typed swiftly, rerouting energy flows and stabilizing the machinery. She watched him quietly, her curiosity growing. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to lecture her. He was simply doing what needed to be done. When he finished, he checked the stabilizer panel on her suit. "Good. It's working properly. Stay behind me when we reach the generator core. And don't go anywhere unless I tell you." Lirana raised an eyebrow. "You give many orders for someone without a royal title." Jace shrugged. "I give the right orders at the right time. Title isn't important when people's lives are at risk." She had never heard anything like that. In her empire, titles decided everything: power, respect, survival. But this human spoke about life and responsibility in a way that felt strangely powerful. As they neared the core, the heat increased. The air shimmered with energy. Sparks shot out from broken conduits. Lirana felt sweat form on her forehead, something she rarely experienced in royal-controlled climates. Jace crouched next to the main control hub. "Princess, I need your help with this part. But you must follow my instructions exactly." "I can do that," she said. He smiled slightly. "Good." Together, they worked side by side. Jace guided her through connecting stabilizer cables, holding active circuits, and adjusting pressure levels. She found herself focusing completely, not out of pride, but because she wanted to help. For the first time in a long time, she was learning something new. After several tense minutes, Jace locked the final circuit. The trembling stopped, The energy flow steadied. The danger passed. The humans nearby cheered in relief. Lyrana stood quietly, breathing hard, surprised at how meaningful the moment felt. Not because she saved lives, although that mattered, but because she had done it by listening, learning, and working as part of a team instead of acting alone. As they walked away from the core, she looked at Jace. "You talk to me differently from everyone else." He looked confused. "How do others talk to you?" "They don't correct me." "Well," Jace said, "maybe they should." She laughed, a soft, genuine sound she hadn't made in years. But before she could say more, loud noises filled the colony again. Dozens of dark shapes appeared in the sky, enemy drones racing toward the moon. This time, someone else was coming for her. And she stayed close to the one human who had already saved her once. Princess Lyrana watched the dark shapes descend from the sky, their sharp metallic wings slicing through the dusty air. Her heart tightened, not with fear for herself, but with anger. She recognized the design of the enemy drones. They belonged to the Rygath Dominion, a faction known for attacking weak colonies and stealing technology. And now, they had found her location. She wondered if they had come just to capture her, or if they were planning something much bigger. Jace Rowan was already pulling her by the arm, leading her quickly away from the open zone. "We need to get inside before they scan the area," he said. His voice was steady, but she could feel the urgency in his grip. He was not afraid, but he understood the danger. Lyrana followed without argument, something she rarely did with anyone. But with Jace, listening felt natural. They ran across a narrow metal walkway that shook with every tremor caused by the approaching drones. Workers shouted warnings. Sirens flashed bright red. Automated turrets on the colony towers activated, firing streaks of blue plasma toward the incoming swarm. But there were too many drones, and their movements were too quick, weaving through the defense fire like a school of metallic fish. Lyrana glanced over her shoulder. The drones kept coming, glowing red sensors scanning everything. "They're locking onto me," she said. She could feel it. Her suit was broadcasting her royal signature. A heavy realization dropped into her mind. It's my fault the colony is now a target. Jace did not stop running, but he looked at her with the same calm expression he always had. Blaming yourself won't help anyone. Staying alive will. His simple words grounded her. She nodded and kept up. They reached a reinforced doorway that led into the underground tunnels of the colony. Jace quickly entered a code, and the door slid open with a hiss. He pushed her inside first. The moment he stepped in after her, he slammed the emergency lock. The thick door shut, just as a beam of red energy struck it, shaking the frame. The sound echoed through the narrow tunnel. Lyrana stared at the door, shocked. "They're firing already?" Jace grabbed a small flashlight from his belt and turned it on. "They will keep firing until they find a way in. We need to move deeper." Lyrana followed him as he walked quickly through the dim tunnel. Pipes ran along the walls, and the humming of machinery echoed around them. The air felt heavier down here, but it was safer than being outside. She watched the way Jace moved quick, focused, confident. Even though she had been trained by elite royal guards, she realized she had never met someone who could remain calm in chaos as naturally as he did. Suddenly, the floor vibrated under their boots. Dust fell from the ceiling cables. "They've deployed ground units," Jace said quietly. "They're spreading across the colony." Lyrana frowned. "Are they after the workers?" They're after you," Jace answered honestly. "But they'll go through anyone who stands in their way." She looked down at the royal crest on her arm. For years, she had used her title like a weapon, something that gave her power, freedom, and influence. Now, she saw the other side of it. Being a princess didn't only attract respect, it attracted enemies. They reached a wider section of the tunnel that split into 3 paths. Jace stopped and studied the old map on his wrist device. Lirana waited silently. She wanted to help, but she knew he was better at navigating these tunnels. "This way," he said finally, choosing the left path. "It leads toward the old mining caverns. Fewer people go there, so the drones won't expect movement." They moved quickly, the sound of distant explosions growing louder with every minute. Eventually, the tunnel opened into a vast underground cavern filled with mining equipment, old carts, and dim lights. The space was enormous, like the inside of a sleeping metal beast. Lirana felt the pressure of the moment lighten slightly. "Do you really think we can hide here?" "For a short time," Jace replied. "But we'll need to move again soon." Before she could ask where, a loud buzzing sound echoed above them. A drone dropped from a ventilation shaft, landing on the cavern floor with sharp metallic legs. Its red sensor lights flashed, focusing on them. Jace reacted instantly. He grabbed Lirana's arm and pulled her behind a large mining cart. "Stay low." The drone scanned the cavern. Lirana held her breath, trying not to make a sound. She had faced danger before, political threats, diplomatic tension, even assassination attempts. But this felt different. This time, she wasn't surrounded by guards or protected by royal shields. She was relying on a human engineer and her own courage. The drone moved slowly, its legs clattering against the cavern floor. Its scanning beam passed dangerously close to their hiding spot. Lirana felt her heartbeat in her throat. Suddenly, she noticed a small power cell on the mining cart. It was old and unstable, with a cracked casing. She pointed at it silently. Jace followed her gaze, then nodded. Carefully, he picked up a heavy metal tool from the ground. Lirana understood his plan. When the drone turned its back, Jace threw the tool with perfect aim. It struck the power cell, causing a burst of sparks. The cell exploded with a loud crack, sending a shockwave across the cavern. The drone screeched electronically as its sensors overloaded. Its legs buckled, and it fell onto its side, twitching. Jace and Lirana used the confusion to run across the cavern toward another tunnel exit. "That was impressive," Lirana said as they moved. She was breathing hard, but smiling a little. "You pointed it out," Jace replied. "Teamwork." She felt a strange warmth in her chest at the word. They entered the second tunnel, which was even narrower than before. Flickering lights cast long shadows on the walls. The air smelled of metal and heat. Lirana brushed her hand along the wall for balance as the tunnel sloped downward. After several minutes, they reached a small maintenance room filled with tools, old consoles, and a large map of the colony. Jace quickly locked the door behind them and checked the ventilation vents. "We can rest for a moment," he said, "but not long." Lirana leaned against the wall, catching her breath. "You've done this before?" "Not exactly this," Jace said, giving a tired laugh. "But Veros 4 always has trouble. I've had to escape something at least once a month." She looked at him with genuine interest. "And you handle it like this, every time?" "Pretty much." The simplicity of his answer made her smile. She had trained for years to fight and defend herself, but Jace had learned through real danger, real experience. He wasn't a soldier, yet he moved like one when necessary. The building shook suddenly, and dust rained from the ceiling. Lirana jumped to her feet. "They found us?" "Not yet," Jace said, "but they're searching the tunnels. We need to figure out our next move." He walked to the map and studied it carefully. Lirana stood beside him. Even in this tense moment, she noticed how focused he was, how he never wasted time. She admired that about him. "We can't go back to the surface," Jace said. "The drones have full control up there." "Then what's the plan?" she asked. "We reach the shield bunker. It's the safest place on the planet. But it's far, and the tunnels are damaged. We can do it," Lirana said without hesitation. Jace looked at her. "You're not afraid?" She met his eyes steadily. "I am. But fear doesn't decide my actions. He nodded slowly. All right then. Let's go. Before they could leave, a loud crash sounded outside the maintenance room. Something heavy slammed against the door. Lyrana's heart raced. Jace stepped in front of her instinctively, protecting her with his body. The door rattled again. The metallic claws of a drone scratched the frame. They found us, Jace whispered. The lights flickered, and the drone outside let out a mechanical roar. Lyrana stepped closer to Jace, her voice quiet but steady. Tell me what to do. For the first time in her life, she was not trying to lead. She was ready to follow. Jace exhaled, preparing himself. When the door breaks, we run. The drone struck the door again. Metal bent inward. Another strike. The lock snapped. Another strike. The door burst open in a shower of sparks. Jace grabbed Lyrana's hand tightly, and they ran into the darkness together, side by side, ready for whatever waited next. Jace and Lyrana sprinted through the dim tunnel, their footsteps echoing loudly as the drone behind them let out sharp, mechanical screeches. Sparks flew from its metal claws as it scraped against the walls, trying to speed through the narrow passage. The sound alone was enough to make anyone panic, but Jace kept his grip tight on Lyrana's hand and pulled her forward with steady determination. Faster, he said. But not in fear, more like a calm instruction. Lyrana nodded, breathing hard. She had run in training halls before, across smooth marble floors and under bright lights. But this was different. The tunnel was uneven, the air was thick with dust, and every few steps she felt a tremor shake the ground. But even with all that, she kept pace with him. Something inside her refused to slow down when he was still pushing forward. The tunnel curved suddenly, and Jace dragged her into a side passage just as the drone fired a red beam that skimmed past them and struck the wall. Stone chips exploded behind them, hitting Lyrana's arm. She winced but didn't stop. Jace glanced at her quickly. You good? Yes, she said through her breath. Keep going. The side passage was even darker, with almost no lighting strips left working. Only Jace's small, portable light guided them. The tunnel was narrow, forcing them to run single file. The air smelled old, like machinery that hadn't been used in years. The drone tried to follow but struggled to fit through the narrow entrance. They heard its metal legs scraping loudly, forcing itself through, crushing pieces of wall as it came. It won't stop, Lyrana whispered. They never do, Jace replied. But neither do we. After several tense minutes of running, they reached a fork. Jace stopped to catch his breath and study the worn-out map on his wrist. Lyrana leaned on the wall, her shoulders rising and falling quickly. Left path leads to water storage, Jace said quietly. Dead end. Right path leads toward the freight elevator that goes deeper underground. We need depth. The bunker is far below. Before Lyrana could respond, a loud crash echoed behind them. The drone had finally forced itself fully into the tunnel. Jace grabbed her hand again. Right path. Now. They rushed down the long slope, the tunnel now shaking as the drone gained speed. Its metal legs clattered against the floor, and its sensors glowed a brighter red, tracking them with perfect precision. The path ended at a wide, circular chamber, where a large industrial elevator sat. It was used to move mining equipment and ore carts, and it looked old, with rust along its corners. But it was their only way down. Jace tapped the control panel. Come on, just work this once. The old panel buzzed weakly, lights flickering as he tried to activate it. The drone entered the chamber, its heavy legs thudding against the ground. Lyrana stepped forward instinctively, placing herself between Jace and the approaching machine. Jace reached out and pulled her back behind him. Stay behind me, he said firmly. I can help. You already are. Don't get hurt. His voice was so steady, so sure, that she stopped arguing. She stepped back, letting him face the drone. The machine moved closer, scanning Jace with bright red beams. It didn't see him as important. Its sensors were focused on Lyrana. The panel beeped suddenly. The elevator doors creaked open. "Inside," Jace shouted. He pushed Lyrana in first and jumped in behind her. The drone lunged forward, its claws reaching the elevator door right as Jace slammed the close button. The door groaned loudly as the claws scraped against it, but slowly, painfully, the metal doors slid shut. The drone's claws left long scratches on the surface, but the door finally locked. Jace pressed the descent button. The old elevator shuddered, then began to move downward with a loud humming sound. Lyrana leaned heavily against the wall, breathing hard. "We made it." "Not yet," Jace said. He leaned forward, hands on his knees, catching his breath. "But we bought time." The elevator descended for several long minutes, passing through layers of older and older structures. The lights flickered constantly, and sometimes the lift shook as if it hit rough patches in the shaft. Lyrana watched Jace, noticing the dust on his face, the sweat on his forehead, and the quiet strength in his posture. He had risked his life over and over again, without hesitation. She wondered why. "Why do you protect me so much?" she asked softly. Jace looked up. "Because you're here. Because you're alive. That's enough." She had never heard a reason so simple and honest in her life. Before she could say anything back, the elevator stopped abruptly. Jace checked the map again. "We're close to the old mining tunnels. The bunker entrance should be a few levels down. We'll need to walk from here. The elevator won't go farther." They stepped out into a wide, dusty chamber filled with old mining carts and broken machinery. The air here felt heavier, colder. Varos 4 was unstable, and they were approaching its deeper layers, where tremors were more common. They began walking across the cavern, staying close together. The path was uneven, filled with cracks and fallen beams. Jace's flashlight cut through the darkness, showing them the safest steps. After a while, Lyrana asked, "How do you know all these tunnels?" Jace shrugged. "Years of working on this planet. You learn fast if you want to survive." "You speak like someone who has seen a lot. More than I wanted to," he said quietly. She didn't push for more. She simply walked beside him, feeling a quiet respect in her chest. They reached an old service ladder that went even deeper. Jace tested the rungs. "Rusty, but strong enough," he said. "I'll go first. You follow. Keep 3 steps between us." She nodded and waited as he descended with careful movements. Then she followed, gripping the cold metal tightly. The shaft was narrow, and echoes of distant tremors vibrated through the walls. Halfway down, the ladder shook violently. Lyrana almost lost her grip. "What was that?" "Probably a surface impact," Jace said. "The drones are still searching." They continued climbing until they reached the bottom, a long, quiet tunnel with thick walls. This part of the colony was ancient, built far before humans arrived. Strange symbols covered the walls, symbols Lyrana recognized from her studies. They were part of an old alien mining network. "This place is older than your colony," she said softly. "I figured," Jace replied. "But right now, it's our path to safety." They walked deeper until the tunnel opened into a massive chamber, supported by ancient stone pillars. In the center was a metal door embedded into the rock, marked with bright yellow stripes. Jace's eyes widened. "This is it. The shield. Bunker." Lyrana took a relieved breath. "We're safe then." "Almost," Jace corrected. "These doors aren't automatic. We need to power them manually." He walked to the side panel and brushed off layers of dust. The controls were old but functional. He connected his portable power cell to the system. The lights buzzed weakly. "Just a little more," he muttered. A deep metallic roar echoed from behind them. Lyrana spun around. "Something's here." Jace turned slowly. His jaw tightened. Out of the shadows, at the far end of the chamber, stepped a large drone much bigger than the earlier ones. It had 6 legs, 3 scanning lenses, and armor plates thicker than a transport ship's hull. This wasn't a recon drone. It was a hunter. Lirana felt a chill run down her spine. That's not like the others. It's built for direct capture, Jace said. Built to chase targets deep underground. Built for one purpose. To take me, Lirana whispered. The hunter drone let out a metallic screech and began to charge toward them. Jace slammed his hand on the power panel. Come on, come on. The bunker door lights blinked slowly. Too slowly. The drone rushed forward, its heavy legs shaking the chamber floor. Lirana grabbed a thick mining tool from the ground. Jace looked at her. Surprised. What are you doing? One. Helping, she said firmly. The drone leaped toward them. Jace threw himself forward, pulling Lirana out of the attack's path. They fell to the ground just as the drone crashed into a pillar, breaking stone into dust. Jace stood and pulled Lirana up beside him. Their backs were to the bunker door, the drone blocking their only exit. Lirana looked at him. Tell me what to do. Stay with me, he said. The drone charged again, and together, they prepared to face it, with the bunker door slowly grinding open behind them. Its red sensors glowing and claws scraping against the stone floor. Sparks flew from every impact as it struck nearby pillars, shaking the ground beneath Lirana and Jace. They had no weapons powerful enough to destroy it outright. The only chance they had was to reach the shield bunker behind them. The door's automatic system was slow, but it would protect them once fully activated. Jace grabbed Lirana's hand and pulled her along the edge of the chamber. Stay low, move with me, he shouted. His voice was calm, firm, and full of purpose. Lirana felt the warmth of his hand and the confidence in his words. She had spent her life commanding armies and leading advisors, but right now, following someone else's orders, especially his, felt empowering in a way she had never known. They dodged flying debris as the drone slammed into a stone pillar. The sound of breaking metal and crumbling rock filled the cavern. Dust coated their suits, and the air was thick with smoke and tension. Lirana realized her heart was pounding faster, but it was not fear that drove her, it was determination. She wanted to survive, and she wanted to survive with Jace. They reached the side panel of the bunker just as the drone reared up on its massive legs. Its sensors locked onto them. Lirana's eyes widened as the clawed arm swung toward them. Without thinking, she grabbed a piece of jagged metal from the ground and hurled it toward the drone. It struck the creature's head, causing it to stagger slightly. The distraction gave Jace just enough time to connect his power cell to the panel fully. Sparks erupted as the ancient machinery roared to life. The heavy metal doors of the shield bunker began to grind open. Slowly at first, but steadily, the gap widened, offering a way to safety. Jace grabbed Lirana's arm. Inside, move now. They ran toward the opening, but the drone recovered quickly. It lunged at them again, its claws scraping the floor dangerously close. Lirana stumbled over debris, and Jace caught her mid-fall, pulling her forward with all his strength. They were almost at the bunker when the drone extended a massive arm, aiming directly for them. Lirana's mind raced. She remembered the stabilizer pack she had worn earlier and the portable tools Jace had used. Thinking quickly, she kicked a loose metal crate at the drone. It collided with the machine's side, making it stagger and giving them the final few steps to reach the bunker. They dove inside just as the doors closed completely, sealing them off from the drone. The heavy metal shield activated instantly, creating a protective energy barrier that prevented the drone from breaking in. The sound of metal striking metal reverberated outside the shield, but inside, the air was suddenly calm. Lirana collapsed against the wall, breathing heavily. Dust and sweat coated her face, but she felt an incredible sense of relief. She had survived because of him, because of Jace. For the first time, she realized that titles, power, and royal status meant nothing if no one had the courage, skill, and heart to protect others. Jace leaned against the opposite wall, adjusting his flashlight. "You okay?" he asked, his tone calm, as if the danger had already passed. "Yes," Lirana said softly, finally allowing herself a small smile. "I've never been more aware of how important teamwork is." She paused, looking at him with genuine admiration. "And I've never met anyone like you." Jace gave a small shrug. "I do what I have to do, that's all." "No," Lirana said firmly. "You didn't just do what you had to. You saved lives. You saved me. You were calm when everything was chaos, and you taught me something I could never learn in a palace." She looked down for a moment, collecting her thoughts. "You've shown me that bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about making the right choice, even when you are afraid." Jace looked at her quietly, letting her words sink in. "Maybe," he said softly, "but you've done your part too. You stayed focused, you followed instructions, and you didn't let pride get in the way." Lirana's lips curved into a small laugh. "Following someone else is not easy for me." "I know," Jace said, smiling faintly. They sat in the quiet bunker for a while, catching their breath. The emergency lights glowed softly around them, casting gentle shadows. Outside, the drone continued its assault, but they were safe for now. Lirana thought about the empire she had come from, the rules she had always defied, and the advisors who had never truly understood her. She realized that her freedom had often been built on rebellion alone. She had tested limits for the thrill of it, not because she understood the responsibility behind them. But now, with Jace, she had learned a lesson she would never forget. "You know," she said after a long pause, "I always thought I was strong because no one could control me. But today, I think true strength is knowing when to listen." Jace tilted his head slightly, studying her. "And you finally know how it feels to trust someone." She nodded. "Yes, and I trust you." The words hung in the air between them. Lirana had never said something so honest to anyone outside her family or advisors. Yet with him, it felt natural, effortless. Minutes passed, and the bunker's systems began to stabilize. The energy shields were fully operational, protecting them from any remaining threats outside. Lirana stood up, brushing dust from her suit. "We should check the rest of the colony," she said. "There may be survivors who need help." Jace shook his head. "Not yet. We need to rest and plan. The Rygath Dominion won't give up easily. And this planet has more dangers than just drones." "I don't care," Lirana said, her voice firm. "I can't sit idle while people suffer. I've learned enough to know when action is necessary." Jace looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. But we do it smart. Together." For the first time in her life, Lirana felt the meaning of the word together. It was not just about having people follow her. It was about mutual trust, shared responsibility, and understanding each other's strengths. She realized that a true leader was someone who could inspire, but also someone who could listen and learn. Hours passed as they monitored the shield bunker systems. Lirana watched the colony layout on Jace's portable interface. She asked questions, learned technical details, and contributed ideas. Jace explained patiently, and she absorbed everything eagerly. It was the first time she had learned something not for duty, ceremony, or status, but simply because it was necessary to survive. As the night deepened, the two of them sat near the main control panel, exhausted but alert. Lirana broke the silence. "Jace, why didn't you leave me to handle this alone? You didn't have to come with me." "I didn't leave," he said simply, "because I knew you couldn't handle this alone, not safely. You're not invincible, Princess. No one is. And even if you are brave, courage without guidance can be deadly. Her eyes softened. She had spent years thinking herself unstoppable. Yet here was someone human, with no title, no special status, teaching her that real courage was paired with wisdom. "I see that now," she said softly. They talked for hours, planning their next steps and discussing strategies for the colony. Lyrana felt a new sense of purpose growing inside her. She had been reckless before, seeking freedom and adventure for the thrill alone. But now, she understood responsibility, the value of teamwork, and the power of trust. By the first light of the planet's distant sun, the situation outside the bunker began to stabilize. The Rygath drones had retreated, likely confused or damaged by the shields. Lyrana and Jace stepped outside cautiously, surveying the damage. The colony had suffered, but the people were alive. Many had hidden or taken shelter in underground rooms. Lyrana realized how fragile life could be, yet also how strong humanity and determination were when combined. Lyrana turned to Jace. "I have to return to my empire. They'll want to know why I survived, why I made decisions they didn't approve of." Jace nodded. "And what will you tell them?" She smiled faintly. "The truth. That I learned something no law or advisor could teach me. That strength is not about defying rules for pleasure. It's about knowing which rules protect life and when to listen to someone wise, even if they have no title." Jace looked at her, and for a moment, they shared a quiet understanding. Neither needed words to explain the bond that had formed in the chaos of the tunnels. Mutual respect, trust, and shared survival had created a connection deeper than titles or ranks could ever define. Lyrana finally spoke, her voice soft but determined. "You taught me the most important lesson of my life, Jace. I won't forget it. Ever." He smiled faintly. "I didn't teach you anything. You chose to learn." She laughed softly, a sound that echoed through the empty corridors. "Maybe, but I wouldn't have learned it without you by my side." As they prepared to return to the surface, Lyrana realized she had changed. She was no longer just the rebellious princess who defied every law. She was a leader who understood courage, responsibility, and the value of listening to others. She had learned that true power was not in titles or weapons, but in understanding, trust, and the lessons one carried through life. The shield bunker doors closed behind them, securing the colony from further immediate threats. Lyrana took a deep breath of the cold, clean air. For the first time, she felt a sense of calm and clarity. She had faced danger, relied on another person, and discovered the meaning of true strength. And she knew that she would carry this lesson for the rest of her life. Jace stood beside her, watching the colony recover. She looked at him one last time and said, "Thank you for staying with me, for saving me, for everything." He gave a faint smile. "We did it together. That's all that matters." Lyrana nodded. The journey had been dangerous, unpredictable, and terrifying. But in the end, she realized that this human had not just protected her body. He had taught her the value of courage, wisdom, and trust. And that was a lesson she would never forget. As the twin suns of Varos IV rose over the horizon, the princess looked out at the colony below, the people moving through the streets, alive and free. She felt hope for the first time in a long while. The empire, the rules, the expectations, all of it, seemed smaller now. What mattered most was protecting life, making the right decisions, and listening to those who deserved trust. And she knew that, wherever she went, she would never forget the human who had shown her how to be truly brave.